All right, we are live here tonight, boys and girls. We just got to let it breathe for a second here and connect our Facebooks, get things rolling. And we are almost just about good. I'm going. Welcome in, everybody. This is the Dove Valley Deep Divers. I'm Chad Jensen, filling in for Lance Sanderson. With me right here, you know him, you love him, Erick Trickel. First of all, Erick, hope you had a great Christmas, my brother, and hope it was a happy New Year. And just generally speaking, happy New Year, big dog.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good time both days. You know, my family has a bad habit of on big holidays of having some kind of fight break out. Didn't have one happen this year, so that's a good sign for that. And it was a nice New Year's. It was about almost 12 hours of people over at our house on New Year's Eve, and I am still exhausted from playing host for that and, Christmas Eve and Christmas as well. On top of my in-laws coming down on Tuesday for a little Christmas thing with them, so I'm very tired from all of the hosting. My favorite time of year, but I'm also glad it's over this year with how long it's been and ready to get back into the swing of things with football. You know, holidays always throw it off when it comes to work and stuff, but I've been grinding behind the scenes, working on draft stuff already and getting it all getting ready to get going over the next couple months with that. But I'm doing good. Hope you're doing good. Hope you and your family had a wonderful holiday and hope everybody else in the chat also had a wonderful holiday season as well.
Yeah, normally this time of year for the past decade, by right now, a couple days into January, MHH has moved on to the next season because the Broncos did not qualify for the playoffs. We've known it by this point for weeks and weeks. So we've been focused on what comes next, the draft, coaching hires, fires, free agency. And that's one of the it's a perk to having stability, Erick, for the fans is you don't have to worry about that stuff. But for the guys who create content and look for compelling storylines and fun stuff, it makes it a little bit more complicated, but we're not complaining. We're here for the Broncos, standing at 13-3 and a chance to tie the most wins they've ever posted in a single season, which is 14. If they win on Sunday, Erick, they clinch the 1 seed. They get that home field advantage. And as Sean Payton talks about it, the first round bye, which minimizes, eliminates one of the risks of potentially getting upset, etc. How big of a deal do you think it is actually getting that bye?
I think this year, especially with the landscape of the AFC, I think it's huge. I mean, it's big every single year, but this year, especially with how wide open the AFC is, a lot of teams that are doing well are struggling a little bit more on the road. And with Denver, with the atmosphere that has been created over, that 11-game win streak that they had, 12-game win streak, whatever it was, and with how well they've done this season, the atmosphere is louder. It's different than it has been, obviously, over the decade long of not doing so hot.
Right.
I think it's a big thing, very important for them. And Sean Payton and this team, going back to in the preseason, they were not so quiet about the Super Bowl expectations they had. And then I like what Sean Payton said or alluded to. I can't remember exactly what the quote was last week. I think he said is like, we clinched the playoffs. Where next step is winning the division, then it's a top seed, then it's winning the AFC, then it's the Super Bowl. It's the stepping stones they have laid out in front of them, and they are in a great position, not just for their own doing, but with some of the decisions the Chargers are making to go out there and take that next step to achieve their goals.
Yeah, it's a big moment, man. I mean, the last time they won the 1 seed was the last time they played for the 1 seed was Brock Osweiler's last start in the first go-round with the Broncos. And, of course, Peyton Manning replaced him halfway through the game and made sure the Broncos came home with the home field advantage in the 1 seed. But, man, it's crazy. That was a long time ago, Erick, and we were rolling. MHH was rocking and rolling back then. It's been fun for me to see guys like Zach, Nick, Carl, Lance, all the guys that joined us like post 2015, right? Finally get a chance to cover a Broncos team that not only wins games, but gets to the playoffs. And, this year in particular, it feels special. Now, I don't want to get out over my skis and start predicting things and whatnot, but there's just an interesting energy and vibe and surrounding this team. Real quick, guys, shout out to some members in the chat. David, what's up, dude? Could see the Chargers BSing everyone and play all the starters except the quarterback. it's kind of weird, man. Flying Anger Pig, good to see you. 2 shows in one long day, Eric. Yeah, Eric works hard, as somebody who uh, also works hard, but who manages people. I never, ever, ever have ever once had to wonder, is Eric pulling his weight? Is Eric doing his thing? Eric, where's your content, bro? It's Friday. Where are your quotas? Where Eric always over delivers. That's for sure. He works hard. And by the way, he self-corrected the spelling on your name. Papa Bear jumping in on Super Chat. What's up, brother? Great to see you, dear member and a legendary superstar. Saying, good evening, Broncos country. God bless the USA. 14-3 plus, 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 plus. We all know what it means. Shout out Big Earns in the chat. Jordan Lewis. Evening, everyone. Can't wait for the game. Pearl's in the house. It's great to see everybody. Eric, back to what David Youngkin was saying. So today, the final injury report comes out for both teams, and we should get into it a little bit because the Chargers injury report, by way of how they designated each player's final game status, didn't really offer the Broncos or anyone else clarity on who they're planning on sitting besides Justin Herbert. Because if you look at the injury report, it just shows game status the same way it would show game status as if they were playing. So it's a blank on the sheet, but I put it, when I write up injury reports, I usually put it as full go because there's nothing holding them back from playing injury-wise. Keenan Allen's that way. Derwin James is listed that way. Khalil Mack. Thule's listed that way. Eric, who do you expect to see on Sunday of these guys? Other than we know for a fact, well, I guess we won't know for a fact till we see it, but we know Jim Harbaugh has said, and you're seeing Trey Lance at the podium, all this stuff. Herbert's not expected to play.
Yeah, I don't expect Justin Herbert, obviously. I don't expect Derwin James, Khalil Mack, or Tuli Peloto. I don't expect any of them. We know that Omarion Hampton, he's going to be out. He has that out designation. Nico Reed, he has that out designation. Elijah Molden and Jamari Salyer, who I believe has been their starting left tackle since Alt and Slater have gone down. He's out. He's out for this game, so he's unlikely to play. But they're trying to play a little bit close to the chest with who's gonna who may or may not sit out. But again, I don't expect Derwin James. I don't expect Khalil Mack. No Justin Herbert. I could see Keenan Allen for a little bit. I wouldn't expect to see a whole lot of Quentin Johnston or even Lad McConkey. I wouldn't expect to see a lot of them playing in this game. They're going to have a lot of guys who are dressing because of, just in case of injury, they may need to have these guys ready to go out there and play.
Yep.
But I expect for the most part of their 22 regular starters on offense and defense, maybe 10 of them actually see the game a whole lot outside of injury.
Yeah, I was reading on X today, the ESPN beat writer on the Chargers. I forget his name, dadgummit. I hate it when that happens, but he reported that Allen is planning on playing because he's got some escalators at stake. He's got some catch and yardage milestones at stake that if he hits them, he gets bonused. So he's probably going to play at least initially and then, see if they get him to his numbers and go from there. But it'll be interesting to see exactly who suits up. And Jim Harbaugh, after telegraphing to the Broncos that Justin Herbert is not going to play, he's using what little gamesmanship he has left available to him to kind of keep the Broncos guessing. Zeus McPeak in the house. What's going on, brother? So good to see one of the foundational superstars checking in on a Friday night here on Dove Valley Deep Divers. He says, let's go Broncos. Let's get the dub and number 1 seed. How are you doing, fellas? I'm doing really good, man. I'm really excited for 2026. I'm excited for, the second half of the season, so to speak. It's not exactly the second half, but what the way the teams view it, Eric, is when they get to the playoffs, it's a new season. So that's how I'm going to view it too.
Yeah, I mean, and I like that mindset of it's a new season. I like that. And it kind of works. All the rules that they have, they kind of reset the injured reserve call-ups. You get 2 more in the playoffs. The practice squad call-ups, they all reset. So anybody who's had 3 already, well, guess what? You're now eligible to be called up again. You have 3 for the playoffs. So it is basically a reset of it. And the mindset has to change a little bit. And you can't look at it as, oh, we lost this game, what we have next week. It is that we lose, we're out. And that seems to be, the mindset that the Broncos are already having since they lost to the Jaguars. It's been very much a very focused team. And I like to see that because after, some of those years during that decade long thing, it was even when Denver had a chance late in the season, you could still see some of the players not have that right mindset, not kind of give up on the team a little bit, give up on the coaching staff. And that really speaks to the locker room that Sean Payton has really had to rebuild in Denver. And I think it was Carrie Penner. I think she talked about it, about the locker room and the atmosphere in it and how much it's changed under Sean Payton. And the mindset, again, it's just a testament to what Sean Payton has done.
You need that culture builder when you have players just not focused late, stuff at stake. As you said, in some cases it would appear, giving up on the team a little bit. That's an accountability issue. That's a cultural issue where the coaches really failed to cultivate the right surroundings and the right expectations and get everybody bought in. And that's one of the best things about Sean Payton. That's one of his calling cards. And boy, oh boy, did the Broncos need it. But yeah, Zeus, we're going for the number 1 seed. It looks good. The Broncos are pretty heavily favored for obvious reasons. And there's a chance, Eric, we could see the Chargers again sometime in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot that's, the conversation has been why the Chargers should rest their starters. And it's because of the matchup that they want. They match up more favorably against the Patriots than they would going into Jacksonville, where they lost like 35-6 or something like that a few weeks ago, or even going into Baltimore or Pittsburgh. New England is that, of the upper echelon in the AFC right now. That's the team that a lot of teams want to go on the road and face. So if the Chargers do that, I think they have a good chance of pulling off the win. I think they match up really well against the Patriots, both offensively and defensively. And then that would bring them back in Denver here in 2 weeks if they manage to pull off the win. So I think that's kind of why that they're looking at it is, get past the Patriots, then go in and, take on the Broncos again here in a couple weeks.
Real quick here, guys, if you're just joining, I see some questions from Peter. So Omarion Hampton is ruled out officially. He's not one of the guys that is in limbo. He's ruled out with an ankle, so he's officially not playing, FYI. But we also have David Yunkin jumping in, celebrating membership on YouTube, MHH, for 4 months, bro. Thank you so much for sticking with us, David. Says the Pats game is on at the same time as Denver. Yeah, but, that game is meaningless so long as Denver takes care of business. And look, who are they playing, Eric? The Jets, right? Aren't the Pats playing the Dolphins? That's right, the Dolphins. And it's Bills Jets. So I don't know. I guess there's a chance, like you wrote in your article today that went up this morning, Eric, the Dolphins coaching staff, they're coaching for their jobs. So you're not going to see, I don't think, a Dolphins team that just walks in there and gives up the ghost. They're going to give them a shot, but they're just not good. They're just not on the Pats level. Pats are going to win that game. So the Broncos, look, don't even worry about what else is going on around you. Just go out and take care of what's in front of you. And the world is your absolute oyster. So, but yeah, if you guys haven't been reading Eric's weekly who to root for besides the Broncos articles, you're missing out. But really, this is probably the last one, right? Like today's was, I guess there's no real need to keep writing them in the playoffs. We know who the next team is going to be.
Would you rather? It's basically who would you rather face at that point,
right?
But yeah, I mean the Dolphins before they played that kind of week 17, week 18 spoiler to the Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's as you said, and it's as every Broncos fan knows. As long as the Broncos win, nothing else really matters. The only game this week that I think actually somewhat matters is the Colts and the Texans, because if the Texans pull off that win, that cements them as the 5th seed, and then the Chargers looking at would we rather go in the 6th seed and then go to Jacksonville, or would we rather the 7th seed and go into New England? And that game's on. It's the earlier game. It's on before kickoff is whatever it is, 9 a.m. Alaska time would be Eastern and Mountain, so 11 Mountain and 1 Eastern. So that's the game to keep an eye on, because that could even change the Chargers mindset even more. Maybe some guys, some of these veterans that they were looking at playing, they end up resting a little bit. Keenan Allen, as you said, with the incentives, I forgot about that. He has like 6 catches or 6 catches, 9 yards and 2 touchdowns, and he can win 1.25 million in incentives. So he probably plays for at least some of that. But other starters, maybe that is a situation where the Texans lose and then they can go possibly want that 5th seed. Maybe then they play Derwin James instead of sitting him. So that's the game I'm keeping an eye out for this week when it comes to the Broncos. And basically it's just for this game because all Denver needs to do is just win, and the top seed's theirs.
That's right. Lots more to get to, guys, including members like Steve Baumgartner. We're going to grab Jordan Lewis's question. Lots more to get to this evening. But first, guys, the playoffs, they're almost here. You can almost reach out and touch them. Underdog, guys, is the best place to get in on all that action. Get in off the bench into the game by heading over to Underdog, downloading the app. And by the way, it's not just football. Whether you're also into like basketball, hockey, any sport in between, Underdog is the best place to get in on all that action all season long.
That's right. Playing on Underdog is easy. You guys just got to pick whether your favorite players will go higher or lower on stats like rushing yards, receptions, touchdowns, and so much more. If you guys get your picks right, you can win up to 5,000 times your cash.
For example, it might be this week, Bo Nix, 2 touchdowns. You think he's going to go higher or lower, and you make your decision and see how it plays out on game day. But I've had so much fun playing Underdog while watching football. It's winning money, the opportunity to even win money while watching football. It's a touchdown, baby. So download the Underdog app today. Sign up with our promo code MHuddle to score $75 in bonus entries. When you play your first $5, that's promo code MHuddle. Millions of fans have already won billions on Underdog. You got to ask yourself, will you be next?
18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Arizona, Massachusetts, and Virginia, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms _DFS_.html for details. Offer not valid in Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. In New York, call the 24/7 HOPE line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
All right, we got Steve Baumgartner, a guy who's been with MHH for many, many years. Great to see you, and thank you for continuing to support us as a member, Stephen. Means the world to us, big dog. He says, good evening, guys. Go Broncos. Hoping Denver can go to the Super Bowl. It's on my birthday, he says. Wow, what a birthday that would be, huh? Can you imagine? I like it. I mean, it's setting up, Eric, Santa Clara once again, Levi Stadium. There's some vibes in the air. We'll see. Jordan Lewis, a dear member, wants to know, do you guys know if Brandon Jones will be back for the playoffs? Eric, I'll let you talk about what you've heard on exactly when he'll be back, but he's going to, based on my understanding, he has to miss at least one playoff game relative to the injured reserve rules. You got to miss at least 4 games. This will be his 3rd missed game.
Yeah, and it all really depends on seeding. If Denver gets the number 1 seed, then the earliest he can come back is a divisional game, because the wild card week when Denver has a bye, it won't count because it's not weeks, it's games. If Denver doesn't win the top seed and they have to play, next weekend, that would be their that 4th game without him, and then he'd be back for the divisional round. So it really depends on the seeding. I think expectation is more so championship game, and part of that is probably because Denver is expecting to go out there, win this week, and get that bye week.
No doubt, but I felt like PJ Locke was a little sketchy in that first game, starting in place of Jones, but I thought he played really well, Eric, against the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think he played. I don't think he was as bad as a lot of other people do in that first game for it. I know that there is a play that's been going around where Jaquan McMillan blitzed in the slot, and Riley Moss took the I believe it was Jacoby Myers up the sideline, and PJ Locke came over on him. And I know there's a lot of, not necessarily hate, but complaining about PJ Locke was in the wrong there when it was actually Riley Moss. And it was nice to see both Justin Simmons and Caden Stearns come out and talk about why that's not on PJ Locke, why it was on Moss. And it just because of the blitzing nickel, it changes the zone coverage that you're running, and Moss didn't do that. But he still had other issues. The touchdown obviously was not a great one. Granted, it was offensive pass interference that wasn't called. But he still had some other bad moments, but he played really well against the Chiefs, and they finally, and I think they used him in the way that he is best used. And this goes back to watching him last year. He had a lot of misuse last year, led to them wanting to go get a safety like Talanoa Hufanga, and they were able to just work him in and just, again, use him the way that he works best. And he ended up having a pretty good game.
Justin Adams jumping in, another member saying, I expect this game to be vanilla on offense for Denver. They're not going to come out shooting like the air raid attack. They're going to keep the playbook tight, save a lot of plays for the postseason. I honestly don't think so, bro. You could be right, but it didn't really feel that way last year in the season finale, where they needed to beat the Chiefs to clinch a playoff berth. And they went out there and clinched with gusto, right? 38-0. And I think that 38-0 drubbing, by the way, against the Chiefs backups was a big reason why Christmas Day, Christmas night, whatever you want to call it, the Chiefs had their dander up so much. Is that, pride issue of, hey, we kind of let you put it on us the last time we didn't have some of our guys, and that ain't happening again. Like, just so you know, that ain't happening again. Oh, and by the way, we know you haven't won in our house since 2015. And we're going to do everything we can, even without the Mahomes and everybody else, to prevent that from happening. But the Broncos obviously got it done. What do you think, though, Eric? Could Justin be right here that the Broncos might run a relatively vanilla offense to kind of shield things for the playoffs?
I think they'll do enough on offense to win. And that might be, some not so vanilla stuff. I don't think they're going to go overboard with it. I would say it would probably be about 80-90% vanilla stuff for them, especially if they get out to an early lead. I think that they would love to be able to get to a point where they can insert their backups in the second half, and they might, try to push some of those things that they feel like they need to work on offensively, some of the passing combinations, maybe some route stuff, maybe a trick play, something that they need to work on. They might throw out early and then just try to use this game as kind of like basically an extra practice kind of thing, and then go from there. But I would be surprised if they're not overly vanilla in this one. I think they would like to keep play a little bit close to the chest with it.
I think it's so cool how far Broncos country stretches. We got folks like Russell here saying, "G'day, boys. Love listening to you guys from Melbourne, Australia." He's not the only guy we have in Melbourne. I mean, Australia, period. We have a lot of members of MHH from there. And Broncos country, very well represented in Australia, like Glenn here saying, "Good morning, Chad and Eric," because, of course, for him, it's the morning. It's the 3rd. And he's saying, "Here's an old school pairing on Dove Valley Deep Divers." Yes, sir. "My keys to victory are doing the fundamentals right, run the football, make our tackles, catch the football. We beat the Chargers down. Who they suit up is irrelevant. Hashtag all about the 1 seed, DVDD for life, MHH for life, state of being." That's right, brother. It's not Broncos country, not a geographic location. It's a state of being. Great to see you, Glenn. Eric, what do you think of his keys to victory there?
Yeah, I mean, fundamentals, that's always a big thing with me, and it's one of those things I look for. Discipline. It's why I've been hounding Jonathan Cooper for the past few weeks with his lack of discipline as a pass rusher. It's just one of those fundamental things. Tackling issues. Again, tackling is fundamental. It's a key to football, and the way that they've been tackling over recent weeks, especially Riley Moss, has been infuriating. I'm very much, even when it comes to scouting, I always look for the disciplined players. I gravitate towards them. Those who are sound fundamentals. That's just my style of football. That's just what I like to see, and I really want to see it from these Broncos. Once again, we saw it earlier in the season, and it's just kind of faltered since about the bye week.
I want to see a complete game, all 3 phases, and I think you can only point to a couple times this year where you really felt like the whole team showed up for all 60 minutes, and that's why I do understand. It frustrates me, but I do understand some of the national skepticism in the Broncos because there are so many markers. I mean, even their plus minus, their takeaway margin their turnover margin is so skiwampus for a team that's about to clinch the 1 seed. Like they're minus, what are they? -5, which is 25th in the NFL. And even Sean Payton on Monday was talking about how that's a point of emphasis heading into the playoffs, is they got to turn that particular metric around, because in the 21st century of the Super Bowl, I think he pointed to one team, the LA Rams, when they beat the Cincinnati Bengals, that had a minus in the turnover differential in the playoffs, right? Not counting the whole season, but the playoffs, that still won the Super Bowl. So good to see you, everybody. Glenn, Joe wants to know on Facebook, if Denver loses, what's the lowest seed they can fall to, Eric?
The 3rd seed. That's the lowest, and that would need both the Patriots and the Jaguars to win. That's where Denver's at. They can't fall to the 4th seed. That is strictly either the Steelers or the Ravens. Whoever wins that game is the 4th seed. They're cemented in. And then 1, 2, 3. Right now it's Denver, New England, Jacksonville, and it can change up just based off who wins and loses this weekend.
And even Stuart McNair checking in from Quebec, Canada. Got a lot of friends I do. The Quebecois are near and dear to my heart. A lot of friends up there in Quebec. Good to see you, pal. Where's Pearl? She says here, I know it's crazy, but I'm not ready for the regular season to end because that means the off season's coming up. LOL. Well, normally that's exactly what it would mean. And yes, it's not too far away regardless. Even if they go all the way, we only have about 6 weeks left of NFL football if the Broncos go all the way, including that entire time, them being a part of it. But I don't know. It's the last few years, Eric, leading up to the Sean Payton, Bo Nix thing. Right now, we were all geared up to who are they hiring, who are they firing. And it does feel nice to not have those kind of concerns. But let not your hearts be troubled because we're going to have, as always, the very best offseason NFL draft coverage in Bronco land. Eric's already been working hard on the draft. It's going to be a great offseason. And the Broncos, Eric, they have still some, even if they go all the way, win the Super Bowl, they still have some needs that they got to address in the offseason. What do you think jumps out most?
Oh, I mean, linebacker, tight end, running back, wide receiver, offensive line, just because of how expensive and aging the group is getting, particularly at tackle.
Yep.
Replacing John Franklin Myers, they seem to be out on him. I wouldn't be surprised if, in terms of receivers, they're looking for a legitimate number 2 guy. Troy Franklin, Pat Bryant, they've done well, but they're still kind of that number 3, number 4 level talents. Courtland Sutton, he's kind of that high end number 2, low end number 1, looking for just a counter for him to help take that pressure off. An inline tight end, somebody who can significantly upgrade the blocking, and maybe even a slot tight end to take over for Evan Ingram because he's been not great this year. They're stuck with his contract for next season as well, just because of how they structured it. Maybe they're looking for another returner option, and that can play into running back or a power back, or even a receiver for that, with Marvin Mims entering the final year of his rookie contract next season. Safety with Brandon Jones entering the final year of his contract next season. There's a lot, and it's not just because of where the roster is necessarily weak at, but just because of how they've had some of these contracts structured, and where they've just added, signed to big extensions some of these players as well. That just makes a lot of up in the air with the status of this roster.
Hey, we got the Ronk checking in. Great to see you tonight as well, Ronk. Last night you were going off, man, and we were all blown away. It's great to see you in the chat this evening. He says, good evening, Chad and Eric on Dove Valley Deep Divers. Go Bo Broncos. Mile high salute right back at you, Ronk. One of these days, big dog, we got to get you to one of the meet and greets. If Eric can make the trek from where he resides, I know we can find a way to get the Ronk there one of these days. Trust on that. Real quick, here's Jordan saying that he agrees. I feel PJ bounced back talking about the Chiefs game and is a big hitter, but sometimes gets out of place. My biggest thing with him is when he's used, Eric, in the same way he was used in all those games in 2023 when he was filling in for the suspended Kareem Jackson, and he was used more almost like 60-70% of the time as kind of a dime backer. He thrives. But when you ask him to start playing coverage on the back end, that's what I saw in that Jags game where he had to come in and fill in for the injured Brandon Jones. The first game Jones missed. Just kind of a step and a half late on a lot of stuff in coverage. In the box and on the edges, I love what he brings to the table. Very physical. I love his energy. I love his vibe. Coverage is where I get a little sketched out with him. And I don't know if it's his, speed. I don't know if it's communication. He hasn't been out there every snap all season long like everybody else. But he has gotten quite a fair amount of usage all year, Eric, with being the third safety. So I don't know, but I am a fan of PJ Locke, and I'm curious to see what ends up happening with him after the season. And I'm rooting for him to really be able to fill in strongly for Jones, not only on Sunday, but however much time he ends up missing, Eric.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that I root for ever since he DM'd me years ago on Twitter to rub something in my face. I've been rooting for him, and he is, I don't think he's great as like a traditional dime safety who plays tough in the box. I think he works more as a nickel in handling that more underneath coverages, underneath zones.
Yeah.
And in that first game against Jacksonville, he was playing a lot of that single high, cover 2 stuff, cover 3. Right. And I don't think he necessarily has the quickness in both the movement and the reaction aspect of it to handle that, to get himself into position in a timely manner. So I think that struggled, and they changed that up a little bit against the Chiefs, and obviously we saw more success. And so it's just kind of how they're using him to the best strength of it. And part of the issues with him working downhill, working in the box, well, that's part of why they brought in Talanoa Hufanga. The issues with being that single high and too high, well, Brandon Jones and Talanoa Hufanga are rotating with that. So it was just a matter of Vance Joseph employing him in the way that was necessary. And I think it was, just with the Brandon Jones injury and just kind of throwing it out there and trying to, prepare for a tough Jacksonville offense. They weren't able to fully implement a game plan for PJ Locke that best suited his abilities without having another way in mind of covering up for the loss of Brandon Jones.
We got Albert in the house, the Mile High Dutchie. Happy New Year. Right back at you, big dog. Great to see you tonight. Glenn wants to know, there's a good question for my part here, Eric. Who are your favorite linebackers in the first 3 rounds for the Broncos, Eric?
Oh, man. Both Ohio State guys, even though one of them is going to end up an edge, Avril Reese, but he's definitely not an option for Denver. He's going to be, if he's not the number 1 pick or the number 1 non-quarterback drafted, I should say, I would be surprised. His counterpart, Sonny Styles, I'd absolutely love in Denver. He's got the height, the weight, the speed, the football IQ. I kind of like the Texas and Georgia linebackers, but both of them, I want to see their measurements. So in modern day linebackers, you're looking for guys with more length, both height and arm length, to help shrink those, over under throws where they're trying to sink it in over the linebackers underneath the safeties. You're looking for that length there to kind of close that window for it. And I know one of them, a lot of people are saying that he might not even come in at 6 foot. He might be a little bit under, which is a major concern. And the other one might be right around there. So I like both of them, but those are 2 guys that the height really would matter for me.
There you go, Glenn. Dropping knowledge is Eric right there for you. Ronk says Vance Joseph's head coaching candidacy, we'll say, is heating up. By the way, guys, tonight we have to keep it relatively short. At least I do. I have to make it to a engagement this evening. We'll call it like the last stages of the holiday season. So any burning topics, questions, supers, get them in the chat and we'll get to them before we dip. But he's saying the New York Giants linked to Vance Joseph. And at this point, with 1 game left to go, only 2 teams have a coaching vacancy, and that's Tennessee and the Giants. But as many as, here are some of the other teams being monitored for a head coaching vacancy in the next week or so. Atlanta Falcons, Arizona Cardinals, Cincinnati Bengals, potentially. Las Vegas Raiders, possibly Browns, Eric, possibly Dolphins. What do you expect to see? How many more vacancies you think are going to open up?
Man, it's interesting because this is a year I doubt it happens, but I've heard a lot about how every team in the AFC North could be looking for a new head coach. Mike Tomlin has been linked with wanting to step away from Pittsburgh for like the last few years. Just hasn't ever done it yet. And then there is a lot of behind the scenes issues that are starting to come out between Lamar Jackson and Harbaugh there in Baltimore. And I think that is one where it sounds like earlier in the season, I thought it would be Harbaugh out, but it's starting to sway in the direction that Jackson's going to be out there in Baltimore. As I think it was the Baltimore beat guy for ESPN came out and wrote an article talking about how Lamar Jackson is sleeping in team meetings, not even showing up to team meetings, being late, all sorts of things like that. But I would expect the Browns to make a change. I would expect the Bengals to make a change. Miami, I think that it really depends on what they do this weekend. Not necessarily win or lose, but if they just roll over and let the Patriots walk all over them or not. Yeah. Buffalo is a team that I think could be one of the surprise ones with how bad that defense is, and Sean McDermott being a defensive guru. They can be a surprise one. I don't think the Jets will. Does Pete Carroll step away from football again? I think the Arizona Cardinals and Washington Commanders are 2 teams to keep an eye on. I think Dan Quinn will probably get another year due to injuries, but Gannon, I know there's been a lot of issues with him ever since he shoved, however way you want to put it, the one player on the sideline that he got in trouble for. There's been a lot of issues with him between and veteran players. So I would say at least we're probably looking at 8 new head coaches, 25%, and maybe could see upward about 12. Like, just depends on how the rest of the season goes.
If I'm an owner in today's NFL, I'm giving a coach basically like a 2-year window to show me what they've got, barring like unprecedented incompetence, like Nathaniel Hackett 2022 in Denver is an example of one of the potential exceptions, him and Urban Meyer that same year, right, with the Jags. But at the same time, I don't envy the decisions these guys have to make, because you have to walk that line of, have they been given enough time to let their culture seep in, this and that? But there's a few where it's pretty clear, Eric, the writing's on the wall. The ones that aren't so clear, obviously Cincinnati, Zach Taylor. I'm sorry, man. When you lose your franchise quarterback for a good chunk of the year, it's hard to get a good read on how great of a job you're doing. The Dolphins is a really interesting situation, because you think of what McDaniel was able to do that first couple of years he was there, 9-8, 11-6, and then 8-9, missed the playoffs. This year, 7-9. So they're probably fixing to be 7-10 this year. And if there was some hope, Eric, with their quarterback situation, I would probably think, well, I think the Dolphins will run it back one more time with McDaniel, but it seems like the Tua thing is pretty much over. So what that means for Vance Joseph is, yeah, those opportunities are going to be there. Some team's going to take a chance on them. So get ready for the Jim Leonard era.
Yeah, I mean, and Michael mentions the New York Giants. That is a team that's been popular when, asking around with Vance Joseph, that with what he's done with his defense, especially the talent that Denver has on the defensive front. Well, go look at the New York Giants and where their talent is on defense. It's that defensive front, and probably can do something similar with that. So I think that he's very much in the running there. I think he'd make a lot of sense if he can bring in the right offensive coordinator to work with Jackson Dart and the running back whose name escapes me at the moment.
Come on, 44.
Yeah.
Come on.
Dude has some absolute hilarious
Cam
videos
Scatabo.
out there. Yeah, Scatabo. And then, Malik Neighbors coming back. You got to get the right offensive mind with him, but it's not a situation in Denver where he's coming in and not having a whole lot of say over the offense or even the quarterback position, but still got to pair him with the right offensive mind. I think that Jesse Minter, the Chargers defense coordinator, is going to be very much in play with that one as well. But there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to covet Vance Joseph, and not just because of what he's done on the defense side of it, but because of the culture that he's been a part of building here in Denver and trying to carry that over with them into wherever he ends up, that he learned from Sean Payton and everything else he's learned from Sean Payton.
And you hear that from Vance Joseph, especially when he's been making himself a little bit more available from the bye week on. He started doing interviews during the bye with press and different podcasts. And then anytime he's been at the podium every Thursday since then, he talks a lot about what he's been learning from Sean Payton, and like trying to think ahead. If I get another chance, this is me extrapolating that, basically, but you can see that he's been given a lot of new ideas and kind of aha epiphany moments in his 3 years working for Sean Payton. And it could serve him well if he gets another opportunity. He is that's the one thing people used to scoff at, Eric, when the results weren't coming in for the Broncos, is we heard all this stuff about him being a quote unquote leader of men. And it just didn't seem like the guys were following him, right? Like when you're only winning 11 total games over 2 years, it kind of rings hollow. But you're seeing now that they're getting some results, and you're seeing the productivity from his unit, that he really does bring out the best in his players. This biggest thing, and he said it in a couple of those same podcasts that he joined during the bye, but it's like, I didn't have a quarterback, man. I wish I could have got the quarterback thing right. Well, I do wonder how he would have fared, Eric, if he would have had a quarterback, because he's a good defensive mind. But the one I'm a little bit more worried about, because the Broncos have a guy in waiting to replace VJ, I worry what's going to happen when someone swoops in on Davis Webb, because that's coming, dude. They were fending him off this time last year, a couple weeks into January last year. This year, there's even more skins that he's got hung on the wall, because he's not just Bo Nix's position coach. He's the pass game coordinator, and he's a lot more involved in the game planning and all that stuff. So I worry about how much longer he's got on the vine, because he's been influential, I'll just put it that way, and what we've seen from Bo Nix through 2 years.
Yeah, I think Denver has a very interesting puzzle ahead of them when it comes to Davis Webb and Lombardi and even Zach Strief. I think that he's one that I think teams are eyeballing him for an offensive coordinator job this year as well. Looking at what Dallas did, they hired the offensive line coach from Arizona last year, and Arizona went from one of the best rushing units to one of the worst. Dallas went from one of the worst to one of the best, and he's the offensive coordinator for them. Really implemented that. Zach Strief with what he's done with the offensive line, how Denver's, last 2 years have been one of the best units. I think he's in it. And, you can't protect guys by being run game coordinator or pass game coordinator. Offense coordinator is still a promotion for it. You can't, that doesn't mean that the team can deny them the interviews. So Denver's got to make a decision. It's even if they fire Lombardi or move him to a different position or have him step down, whatever, they can only promote one guy to offensive coordinator and have them protected from that. So they're still at risk of losing somebody. Davis Webb is highly coveted. He's been one of the guys, I think Tom Pelissaro and a guy for ESPN, I can't remember, I think it was Jeremy Fowler, who came out and talked about these are probably the two hottest coaches. He's probably one of the hottest coaches for the offensive side of the ball that's not an offensive coordinator at the moment. And so I'm curious to see what they do. I would love to see them move on from Lombardi and keep Webb or Strief. And if Denver loses both of them, man, I think they could be in a world of hurt after the season.
I agree. We'll see what happens, guys. 2-minute warning. Any burning questions, topics, get them in the chat here. Chase wants to know, I'm going to grab this one, guys, and then I got to dip out. Eric's going to take you home till the top of the hour. But Chase wants to know here, can we point to anything specific on why Vance's defenses tend to fall off late in the season, or is it just a failure to adjust? What do you attribute it to, Eric?
I think there's over both the last two seasons, I think there's two partial answer for both of them, and that's injuries. Last year, we started suffering injuries later in the season, and this year we did as well. I don't think it's the whole reason for it because Denver started to show some of these, weaknesses prior to injuries happening. Vance Joseph started to make some adjustments prior to that, so he wasn't just adjusting for injuries. So I'm not sure exactly what it is. I don't think it might be him just trying to play things a little close to the chest, not going all out and saving some stuff for the playoffs. I'm not entirely sure what all it is. I know that there is a fear among some, and this is one that's brought up as a counterpoint for Joseph being such a hot candidate for a head coaching job, and that is that they don't feel that his defense really adjusts in a positive manner late in the season, that once they get figured out, he struggles how to make defenses guess again. And this is something that I've highlighted a lot with the AA mug looks that Denver's given a lot on defense and not, branching off of that and creating wrinkles off of that. And so maybe that's a reason, but I can't pinpoint just one thing. It just seems to be like a culmination of different things.
There you have it, Chase. Well, listen, guys, I've had a blast. Much love and respect. I'll see you guys tomorrow, the members anyway, for Broncos Book Club. Shout out Papa Bear, Zeus, David Youngkin. Thanks for your support on Super Chat tonight. And Eric's going to take you home. I'll see you. If I don't see you tomorrow in Broncos Book Club, I'll see you Sunday following the game for the gut reaction. Eric, have a great night and a great weekend, big dog, and much love and respect to everybody.
Have a good one.
See you later.
Drive safe and all that, and see you next time. Now we have Sean Eichenbaum coming in saying top free agents. This is a good one. This is something that Nick and I, we've kind of touched on over the last few weeks when we've both been able to do the show. This is actually a pretty good free agent year for a team like Denver with where they're looking at. Not so much wide receiver, but, running back. You have guys like Breece Hall, Travis Etienne, Rico Dowdle. You have Tyler Algier, who's a free agent, Kenneth Walker. So there's options out there for that running back market. Depends on what they're just going to be looking for and what type they're going to be looking for. I would expect them to bring J.K. Dobbins back, extend him on a 1-year deal, and just keep that because let's face it, Jaleel McLaughlin, Tyler Bidet, neither one of them's cut to be that number 3 running back. So you can use J.K. Dobbins as that number 3. Granted, he's been as good as he's been. It's hard to take R.J. Harvey off the field with how much he scored. Quite frankly, he's tied for the 9th most touchdowns in the NFL and leads all rookies. And it's hard to pull that off and not try to get even more out of him next year. So I would expect Denver to be looking for more of a power counterpoint or counter to him. So Breece Hall, Tyler Algier is the one guy I would really like for him. Tight end really depends on if contract's void. David Njoku, he's a free agent if his contract voids. Dallas Goedert, he's a free agent if his contract voids. But you also have guys like Cade Otton, who's a free agent. You have Daniel Bellinger, Austin Hooper, Isaiah Likely. A lot of options at tight end. Wide receiver is where it gets a little bit more wonky just because of issues here or there with him. Wan'Dale Robinson, career year that he's had, but he's kind of in that Marvin Mims mold type player, has done a lot more on offensively this year. And Marvin Mims has been more on special teams. George Pickens, Romeo Doubs, Alec Pierce, Juwan Jennings, Deebo Samuel, Rashid Shaheed. I wouldn't be surprised if Denver looks at Rashid Shaheed with the history that he has with Sean Payton there in New Orleans. And then there's plenty of others. This is a pretty good free agent year, as I said, and we'll have plenty of time to dive even more into that later on down the road. Peter Johnson says, I don't think JK would want any part of being a number 3 situational back. He could still start somewhere in the league. After yet another season ending, possibly can come back in the playoffs. Foot injury, lower leg injury. It might be, if he's looking for that, it might be a situation where he's waiting until July, June, August, somewhere around there for a team that finally is willing to pick him up. And it would basically be a cheap 1-year prove it deal that may not have him be more than a number 3 situational back. And here's the thing with it in Denver. He knows the scheme. He knows the offense. He would have a chance to be more than just that number 3 situational back. Is that you're just bringing him in for that and being another power back, limiting him in his touches because frankly, the guy can't stay healthy, can't stay out on the field. He's had awful, rotten luck with injuries. So I would be surprised if teams look out there and be like, oh yeah, he can come in and he can be our top back with the injury history that he has and sign him to a deal in, March or May or April. I would expect him to be waiting a while unless he resigns with Denver. Pearl Heater asking about left tackles. Left tackle's a good one. I'm not sure what the free agent market looks at. I haven't looked at that simply because, Garrett Bowles just signed that extension last year and he's been playing the best year of his career this year after playing one of the, probably the best year up to that point last year. So back-to-back career years for him. He's been the best left tackle in the NFL this year and a top 3 tackle overall when you look at a lot of the metrics for it. So I haven't looked at free agents to replace him. I have looked at drafting a tackle, working on developing them to either replace Garrett Bowles or Mike McGlinchey after the season or after next season. So in 2027, when both of them have their contracts are at a point where you can move on from them without much hit and dead cap money. And this isn't a great tackle class. A lot of the top tackles, I think there's a couple good top tackles, but I think a lot of them are guys that are probably going to be better at guard and should be moved inside to guard and not kept outside for one reason or another. So not a great one unless Denver, is able to pull something out of the hat and get a guy late and really get them developed and get them going. What they've tried to do, they tried to get Frank Crum up there and developed. They've tried to get Matt Peart developed to where he can be a starter. I know that last year, prior to signing Bowles to his injury, they're looking at Matt Peart to be that possible replacement for Bowles. And then Bowles had the year that he did. They signed him to an extension. So there's quite a few options in the draft. But again, free agency, I just haven't looked at. Glenn Ashley coming in, asking, what are your thoughts on Anthony Hill out of Texas as an inside linebacker? I really like what I have seen so far. He has good height at 6'3" speed. He is one that, and I talked about him earlier, the Georgia linebacker is the one that a lot of people aren't expecting to break 6 foot. Anthony Hill, from what I've gathered, they're not expecting him to be, 6'3". They're expecting him to be 6 foot, 6'1", and may not have the arm length that you're really looking for. I really like his play. I love the instincts. I love the football smarts. I think that he has a lot of what you need to cover up for the lack of length and the lack of height. I just question how much you can do that at the NFL level. And so I'm really curious to see. The scouting combine is going to be pretty big for me when it comes to that. When it comes to Anthony Hill, seeing what he does, not just, with the measurements, but with the movement and all that and the position drills, because that can help give you some insight as to what he can do to cover it up. But that said, linebacker is probably the second hardest position outside of quarterbacks to evaluate when it comes to the NFL because of all they're asked to do in college and how different it can be at the NFL level, depending on where they play at. It can be a really difficult position to evaluate. And quite frankly, my track record with evaluating linebackers is very hit or miss. Definitely have some hits out there, but definitely have a lot of misses that go with it. And as Flying Inger Pig comes in, it's quarterback of the defense. That's exactly it. They're just asked to be that. The communication aspect has to be it. Has to be up to par because they are that quarterback of the defense. They are that guy of, all right, we're going to communicate between the guys in the secondary and the guys up front as to what everybody's doing. Any changes, we got to communicate to everybody. And so they have to have that. They have to have the football instincts, the football IQ to really read what's going on and make those adjustments, because green dot players, very rarely is it not a linebacker, and it's because of where they line up at. Pearl Heater's asking about center. With the extension Luke Wattenberg had, how he was playing prior to his injury. After that extension, I can't believe that he looked like a top 10 center at the very least since he signed his extension, compared to being, maybe top 20 center prior to his extension. He really turned it up after that, got hurt. But, the extension he has, I don't expect Denver to do anything at center. They might draft another guy to possibly or sign somebody for a year, because Alex Forsyth will enter the final year of his contract next year, who filling in for Luke Wattenberg. Alex Forsyth has done a great job for it with that. But center this year, I did a lot of work on centers prior to Luke Wattenberg's injury, trying to kind of cranked out some of them there. Definitely a good unit. Definitely a lot of good options there. And I think there's a lot of options in the draft on interior offensive line that can play both guard and center. And I think that will be something that Denver looks at because of Ben Powers, what they do with him. They can move on from him after the season with a post-June 1st cut. Regular cut, I doubt, just because of the way the contract money works. But somebody who can play outside, somebody who can play inside, and just give him that versatile depth option there is that. Justin Adams saying they need to draft a bell cow running back and set inside linebacker and 2 or 3 defenders for the secondary, sign wide receiver 1. Oh, this year is terrible to need a running back. You have Jeremiah Love and then everybody else. And with what I've done on this running back room, probably won't happen. I'm sure we'll see a running back or 2 drafted in the second round, but there shouldn't be. This is a really bad running back room. There are maybe 3 or 4 guys that I can understand late in the 3rd round, but it is definitely 4, 5, 6, 7th undrafted. That's where the bulk of this running back room is. And to highlight that, on my scouting list, I start off with almost 2,000 players that I go in and I break them down, split them up by position, and I go through a bunch of different measures to cut it down to about 750 total players. Running backs, for the first time ever, I have 46 total running backs on it. It's the first time ever I've been under 50, and it's only like the second time ever I've been under 75. I have more tight ends on my on my scouting list than I do running backs. Not a great year for that. Linebacker, I think this is a good year for it. It seems to be a pretty good class for it. I haven't done a whole lot of work on it. I have watched some of the top guys. Sonny Styles, again, would be an absolute dream for Denver there. At the very least, at 32, right? Denver's going to win the Super Bowl. They're going to be picking 32, barring a move up. I think Sonny Styles would be a dream there. Don't think he gets there. I don't think he makes out of the top 20 at the moment. And Anthony Hill and CJ Allen, depending on what their measurements and what they do at the combine. A couple other guys as well. I know there's an edge rusher, name escapes me at the moment, who a lot of people are talking about moving inside to linebacker, moving him off ball and kind of being that downhill defender. So that can be an option for them as well. There's a couple other, linebackers out there that I've heard mentioned, but I just haven't done enough work on to really form an opinion on them. And then 2 or 3 defenders in the secondary. That's a bit rich when you have Brandon Jones coming back. You have Jaquan McMillan, Jahdae Barron, Chris Abrams-Strain. Like, they have a lot of guys for there. I would still expect at least a draft pick spent on a corner, just because that's George Payton's thing. And you also have, Chris Abrams-Strain, Riley Moss, Jaquan McMillan. Their contract situations are coming up over the next couple of years. Safety, Brandon Jones. So it's possible, improve the depth there. Safety especially. PJ Locke is a free agent after this year. Brandon Jones is a free agent after 2026. Talanoa Hufanga, injuries can be there. So it's all pretty interesting for it. When it comes to secondary, definitely an option. And then wide receiver 1, I would expect Denver to be very active, not necessarily in the free agent market, but with a trade for wide receiver 1. I would not be surprised if Denver they were very hard in on for Jalen Waddle prior to the trade deadline. I wouldn't be surprised if they reevaluate that. Let's see here. We have Chase Wallner. Doesn't look like the most inspiring free agent wide receiver class. It's not. It is not a good one. Finding Inger Pig asking about Ruben Bain Jr. or TJ Parker. I haven't watched TJ Parker. I know Ruben Bain has very short arms, and it's led to a conversation of, is he a true edge? Is he more of an interior pass rusher that needs to bulk up? after watching what he did in their game yesterday or Friday, I can't remember when Miami played, leave this guy at edge. He's an absolute wrecking ball. Just such a great presence. So fierce and ferocious as a pass rusher. It is a great, he's a really good prospect for it. He may not be an elite pass rusher because of the lack of length and struggling to get off blocks, but he can be a force that he can move around on the defensive front. Like Elvis Dumervil, pretty much. I think Elvis Dumervil had a little bit more length, and he didn't have the longest arms. There's a lot of talk about Ruben Bain not breaking 30-inch arms. I'd have to pull up what Elvis Dumervil had. I think Elvis Dumervil was like at 31, or something like that. Let me see if I can't pull that up real quick. It doesn't have his arm length, so I can't quite see that, but very different players. Elvis Dumervil was very, quick and, more on the explosive side. Ruben Bain is much more physical and power to his game. Pearl Heater asking this year, what will the most good players be, or most good players at what position? Defensive line looks absolutely stacked, but it is because of nose tackles. Like the last year, I started splitting up nose tackles from regular and defensive linemen. This year, there's over 20 nose tackles, 320 plus pound guys that are absolute monsters on the inside in one way or another. A lot of them also add up some pretty solid pass rush potential as well. The fact that Denver signed extended DJ Jones and Malcolm Roach, as much as I agreed with Malcolm Roach, wasn't super sold on DJ Jones, but it is what it is. But in hindsight, it's kind of bad because this would have been a great year to add a cost-controlled nose tackle that can really come in day one and contribute in a big way. But defensive line is one of the better draft classes. Linebackers another really good one. And tight end seems to be pretty sound as well. Justin Adams says just thin at safety backer when those vets come off for injury. Hufanga and Jones, Greenlaw all being off field really bites. Hope they will draft well this year regardless. Oh yeah, for sure. Linebacker, I think no matter what, you got to kind of look at. Greenlaw has not been good when he's on the field. Alex Singleton is a free agent. Justin Strnad is a free agent. Are you really betting on Lavelle Bailey, Karine Reed, Drew Sanders, who's still injured and has had issues staying healthy? Jordan Turner, he's looked good in his time, but what can he really do? It's a lot of betting on undrafted free agents or guys who can't stay healthy. And so linebacker, I'm fully with you. I fully get it. And I get what you're saying with safety. It's Hufanga and Jones, and then everybody else. Locke has started playing well, but Devin Key, good special teams player. Haven't seen a whole lot of JL Skinner. Definitely a concern there. So I get it, and especially when you look at the contract situation of those players at the position. Again, PJ Locke being a free agent after this year, Brandon Jones being a free agent after next season. Definitely makes sense for it. But that is going to have to do it for us tonight. I enjoyed sitting here, getting an extra, 15, 20 minutes talking about just the draft. I am hard at work at getting stuff ready for that, for post playoffs, even though I'm going to be working on both at the same time, playoff coverage, doing my matchups and all that stuff, my bold predictions that I do for the games, my post game analysis. And then we have the Senior Bowl coming up. We have the Shrine Bowl coming up, and I'm going to be busy on that. I have credentials for both, for online media credentials. So I'm able to go back and watch over the practices and bring you content about that and all sorts of stuff. So I'm looking forward to it. I hope you guys have a wonderful night. Before I get out of here, I do have some final words that I have to get through. Of course, super chats on YouTube and SARS. Those are great ways to help us keep the lights on and keep the shows going week in, week out, day in, day out. Make sure you guys subscribe, like, and share. It is the easiest way. If you are financially unable to help, this is the easiest way to do so. It only takes a matter of 15, 20 seconds and helps us out tremendously with the algorithms that are ever changing, especially on Facebook and YouTube, and ever being headaches on our part. You guys can also follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. This is a great way for, to give us your feedback, what you like, what you don't like, and also enter your chance to win some swag. There, I said swag, even though I hate saying swag. Gear is the way that it should be, but it gets you a chance to win some every single month. You guys can follow us on Instagram at Mile and Huddle with an underscore between Mile and High and Huddle. And if you are financially able to do so, you guys can go check out mhhmerch.com to get some hats like the one that I have on, shirts, bibs. I would say shirt, but I don't have a DVD shirt on. I have a Christmas Star Wars shirt on. But you guys can get all sorts of stuff there: mugs, bibs, again, shirts, hats, posters. There's a lot that we have there. You guys can go check it out at mhhmerch.com. You guys can also follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/milehighhuddlepod and facebook.com/milehighhuddle, where you guys can get access to the wonderful Facebook community that we built up since 2014, 2013. You guys can also follow us on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at Mile High Huddle, at DVDD_pod, and myself at Erick Trickel. And you guys can reach out to us there if you ever need anything. But that's going to have to do it for us. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you guys for spending part of your Friday night with both me and Chad, and then just with me. Appreciate you all. Love you all. Before we get out here, though, make sure you guys check in on friends and loved ones. Make sure that they're doing okay during this time of year. Even though the holidays have really passed, it still can be a really tough time for a lot of people. Make sure you check on them. If you guys are ever need anybody to talk to or anything like that, feel free to reach out. Twitter, Facebook. I'm pretty much always available. If I'm not available at that moment, I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can. Emails. Also, I have a email that I have set on my Twitter account that you guys can reach out to me through that as well. But thank you guys for tuning in. Have a wonderful Friday night. Make sure you guys stay safe. Don't drink and drive. And as my good friend Nick always says, make sure you choose kindness and compassion. And of course, go Broncos.